Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2, Chapter 4.5, 4.6 review. Now, we have already talked about the whole front page, okay? So if you need help on that, watch video number 1. I'm going to be talking about, that's right, page number 2. Okay, so number 13. It's asking us to identify the domain and the range. So we need to remember that the domain is talking about the x values, but the range is talking about the y values. Okay, so for the domain, we are starting at -6 and then we're ending at 4. Okay, so just like when we were writing interval notation, the graph starts at -6, but then it's going to stop at 4. Okay, and that's all I want to know. It can be any of these numbers in between. Okay, it just can't be anything outside of that. Now, we're going to do the same thing for the range, the y values, okay? It looks like this graph is starting at -5, and then it goes all the way up to +4. So once again, here we are at -5, and then we stop at 4. Okay, and that's all it's asking for, so we don't have to do anything else. All right, number 14. Okay, our domain, remember the domain is the first set, okay? These would be our x's and those would be our y's, the input versus the output. So when we're talking about domain, we're talking about x, and now we want to put these in numerical order. Okay, so from lowest to highest, least to greatest. So we've got -4, then the next number is -3, and then we have a 0, and last we have a 2. Okay, so that's our domain, and now we need to do the range. Okay, so once again, in numerical order, the lowest number is -8, then a -3, then the 2, and then last, the 5. Now, it's not asking us right now if it's a function or not. Okay, all we had to do is identify the domain and the range. Okay, 15. The domain. Okay, so remember, domain is talking about the x. Now, from left to right, is there a specific start and stop to this? No, we can't tell because this goes on and on and on and on and on and on, and it's going to keep going on, and then it's going to keep going on in the other direction. Okay, so when we can't see the specific beginning and end, we know that it's going to be -infinity, and then it's going to stop at +infinity. And we can say the same thing for the range, and you might be like, no, Mr. Grice, look, there's the start and there's the stop. Maybe, but remember, this arrow is going down and down and down and down and down, and the other one's going up and up and up and up and up. So it's going to be the same exact thing. If you can't see the specific start and stop, it's going to be -infinity to +infinity. Okay. Now they're asking for if it's a function or not. So when I'm figuring out if things are functions or not, I'm more of a visual person, so I'm going to kind of write down this chart and know that, hey, -2 goes to 5. Okay. Now my next one is 4 and 11. So 4 goes to 11. Let's see. So then we have -1. I have -1 and then 6. So -1 goes to 6. But then my next point is -2, 3. I already wrote down -2, but I haven't written 3 yet. So there's my 3. But now -2 has to go to 3. So is that a function? No, Mr. Grice, it's not a function because the -2 has 2 different answers and that can't happen. Okay, number 17. Is number 17 a function? Now, when we're given a graph, the fastest way to figure out if it's a function or not is by completing the vertical line test, which means I can draw a vertical line anywhere and I'm trying to find a point to prove it wrong. Okay? It only passes once, so that passes. And no matter where you draw the line, up, it only hits once. Okay? So what that means, is this a function? Yes, it is. Okay? So for 18, as we're drawing the vertical line, you can be like, well, Mr. Grice, look, I draw it right here, and it only hits once. That means it's a function. Okay, but remember, I'm trying to prove it wrong. So anywhere, if there's just one spot that I can draw a line and it passes twice, guess what? It is not a function. Okay? All right. Last one. Evaluate the function for the given value. Okay, so remember that this is our function. F of x is just saying, hey, this is a function, and here's what I want you to plug in. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in and write this down. So we're saying f of -1 equals -4 x squared plus 7 times x minus 3. And I'm plugging in a -1. Okay? So, order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, I need to do exponents first. And remember, that is -1 times -1. A negative times a negative actually makes that a +1. And if you forget that, go off to the side. -1 times -1. Oh yeah, that equals 1. And that's the only thing I'm allowed to do. Okay? Because we are following order of operations. Okay. Next thing is multiplication. So, -4 times 1 is -4. I can also multiply right here. 7 times -1 is -7 minus 3. And now from left to right, we can just solve this. -4 plus -7, well, that's -11. And then -11 minus 3 is -14. So f of -1 equals -14. Remember, don't try to do anything else with the -1. All we had to do was to plug it in. Okay, don't freak out because there's a fraction here. Okay, no math babies. There's our function, and this is what we're going to be plugging in. So g of 4/5 equals 20 minus 15 times 4/5. Okay, so the first thing, saved by the bell. No, too bad this isn't class and I get to keep on teaching. So the first thing we have to do is multiply, and we're going to multiply that -15 over 1 times 4/5. Okay? Guys, just multiply straight across. -15 times 4 is -60. 1 times 5 is 5. Negative 60 divided by 5 is negative, that's right, negative 12. So we have 20 minus 12, and then 20 minus 12 is, that's right, 8. So G of 4/5 equals 8. All right, last two. It says to find the value of x so that it meets the requirements. If f of x equals negative 2x minus 9, find it so that f of x equals negative 9. So f of x, they're saying f of x equals negative 9. Now we have to find out what x is. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for x. Now that we're solving for x, this is when we use the reverse order of operations. Okay, so we would want to add 1 to both sides. Negative 9 plus 8 is, or just let's say the answer. Negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8. Thanks, Mr. Grice. Okay, and then divide. To get the x by itself, we divide by negative 2. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is a positive 4. Now, if you don't believe that that's what x is, remember we talked about how you can check that. We could say, oh, let's plug in 4 and figure out what we get. We should get negative 9. So we got 2x times 4 minus 1. Well, negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. And the negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. So f of 4 equals negative 9. That's our check, which means we did it right. And now you don't have to go ask Ms. Carranza or Mr. Grice if you got it right or not. All right, last one. So here's our function. G of x equals 8 plus 4/3 x. And we're going to find out when g of x equals 0. So where that g of x is, that's where I'm going to plug in my 0. And then the rest of this stays the same. Now, I don't know about you or not, but I hate fractions. Okay? So to get rid of my fraction right away, I can multiply by the lowest common denominator. And since there's only one fraction, it's easy. You just pick the denominator. Okay, so distribute 0 times 3. Yep, 0. 3 times 8 is 24. 4/3 times 3. Remember, if you don't know it, go off to the side. 3 over 1 times 4 over 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And that is a 4x. Okay? And remember, we're trying to solve. So I'm going to subtract the 24 to the other side. 0 minus 24 is just a negative 24. And then get the x by itself, we need to divide by 4. And then we get negative 6 equals x. And if you want to, guys, you can plug that back into the equation to see if Mr. Grice isn't full of it. Okay. Well, guys, that's it for the 4.5, 4.6 review. Remember, if you have any questions at all, please come see Ms. Carranza or myself because tomorrow is, that's right, excuse me, it's your test. So, this is Mr. Grice signing off for the Algebra 2 Chapter 4.5, 4.6 review. Thanks for watching.